This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group, and your host of Washington Calling, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, we are fortunate to have a distinguished guest, and his name is Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed. He's a Swedish political scientist and author of Pakistani descent. He obtained a PhD in political science from Stockholm University. He's currently Professor Emeritus, at Stockholm University, who is also visiting professor at the Institute of South Asian Studies at the National University of Singapore. He has written a great deal on the partition of India and Jinnah's role and his success and failures. Thank you, Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed, for coming to our show, and we welcome you.
Thank you very much. I'm greatly honored to be invited, and I'm looking forward to this conversation with you and with Shehzad Sahab. Yeah.
So, Professor Ahmed, you are a Swedish political scientist and author of Pakistani descent. Please tell our global audience about your journey and how you came to live in Sweden from Pakistan.
Well,
it has been a remarkable journey.
Yeah, it is a remarkable journey. It's like this, that in 1971, the MA political science results were announced, and I was first class first. At that time, people of my sort of background, ordinary middle class, would sit in the Central Superior Services exam, and many of them qualified, but I had opted for education career. I had an idealistic view that one should serve the people rather than be an agent of the state. It was one of those idealist periods in my life. And then from that onwards, I was teaching at Gordon College, Rawalpindi, for a year and a half, when I noticed that there was a lot of repression taking place in Pakistan. Trade union leaders were being rounded up, and generally there was a pessimistic sort of atmosphere in Pakistan. Although Mr. Bhutto had come to power and people expected a lot from him. But then this sort of feeling descended upon us, and my elder brother was settled in Stockholm for a long time. He visited Pakistan, and then, like the family says, take him to, yeah. So that's how I landed up in Stockholm on the 26th of September, 1973. The original idea was that I'll stay for about 3-4 months and wait for things to calm down in Pakistan, or alternatively try to emigrate to Canada. But a friend of my brother, Riaz Shima, he's deceased now, he said, why don't you show your papers to Stockholm University? You have excellent credentials, which I did. And they were kind enough to say that we are willing to admit you to the PhD classes. You must first learn Swedish, and then we can even consider giving you a scholarship. So all that worked out, and I stayed on in Sweden. So that's the background.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about my next question. You are a globally recognized person in South Asian studies and author of many books. Would you be kind enough to tell our viewers about your 2 books, which is very engaging books, The Punjab, The Bloody Partition and Cleanse, and Jinnah, His Success and Failure?
Well, these are 2 books. I work very hard on whatever book I'm writing. The first book, in a sort of academic, intellectual sense, was the bigger challenge. The reason was that whatever was written about the partition of Punjab, and why Punjab? Because the figures are like this. that in the partition of India, if 1 million people were killed, Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs, and 12 to 14 million were forced to leave their homes to seek refuge on the other side, depending on whether you were a Hindu, Sikh, or a Muslim, the figures for Punjab were extremely startling. 800,000 fatalities, deaths were in Punjab, and 10 million people of its 34 million population had to run for their lives across the border drawn by the Red Cliff Award in at the time of partition. So I wanted to know why the Punjab suffered so much, why so much violence transpired in Punjab, where I also come from. And from my childhood, I had been hearing stories of some of the violent acts which had taken place on Temple Road, Lahore, where I was born and grew up.
So you born in the part of the Pakistan, part of the Lahore?
In Lahore on the 24th of February, 1947.
Long time ago.
Just before the partition.
Just before the partition.
Yeah. Okay. So partition, violence, partition, savagery, butchery, whatever you want to call, the stories about them were told all the time in our area, in our family. And so this became a concern of mine to find out what has happened. But when I was at Stockholm University, and before our eyes, Yugoslavia had disintegrated. Mm-hmm. And the ethnic violence which had taken place, again, sort of reminded me of my duty to look at what had happened in the Punjab. The problem was that whatever material existed at that time was up to the 14th of August 1947, when the British transferred power to India and Pakistan.
Right.
Up until then, you could find the weekly secret reports of the governors. You could find many other sources, but official documents ended on that day. But the evidence seemed to suggest that most of the killing, the spiraling of violence took place after power had been transferred to the Pakistani and Indian Punjab.
I got you.
So, yeah. So
that's the story.
So that's the story. And so I wanted to find out, how can I tell this story?
Right.
I got a grant from the Swedish Research Council to do research for 3 years.
Oh my goodness.
Actually, it took me 11 years to finally come up with an explanation, not just a narrative, but an explanation of what happened, how, and why. And that book was very well received in both India and Pakistan. In Pakistan, to my very great surprise, it won 2 Best Non-Fiction Book Awards. Wow. One at Karachi and one at Lahore.
Wonderful.
So what I did was I would come to Pakistan and India during winters. At that time, getting a visa to travel to India was not a problem.
At that time?
Yeah, at that time. That is from 2002 to 2005.
Okay, so that was the time of who was the Prime Minister of India at that time?
And I don't remember now, but
I think it was Rajiv Gandhi.
Whosoever it was. No, Rajiv Gandhi had been assassinated by that time.
Right.
Yeah, but things were still not so bad, you know. The 26th November 2008 terrorist attack on Mumbai had not taken place.
Right.
So I could get the visa to go to the Indian Punjab. Going to the Pakistani Punjab, of course, was not a problem. And so I started tracing people, sometimes who came from the same place and could give evidence of exactly the same incident that I was researching in. So the book then is based on about 262 oral histories which I collected,
Wow.
and the transfer of power 12 volumes of the British, the fortnightly reports of the British governors, two newspapers, the Tribune, which was pro-Congress, and the Pakistan Time, which was pro-Muslim League. And then, of course, many other sources as well. And that book has become like a reference for anybody who wants to do to study the partition of Punjab.
The partition of Punjab.
Before that, only a pilot study of some women who were uprooted was done by Urvashi Batalia and some other women in India. But it was a pilot study, just maybe 20, 30 women who were. I wanted to do it for the whole of Punjab and do it in a chronological order. And all that is presented in the book.
Very nice. You're the few academic who enjoys equal access on both sides of the border in Pakistan and India.
Yeah.
How has been your experience in India, especially on your recent visits? And what lessons have you learned from India that you want to copy and you want to make sure that you can propagate and promote that in Pakistan?
Well, I think India represented the original India, represented the founding principles of the freedom movement, that it will be a secular state.
Right.
It will be an inclusive, pluralist democracy.
Right.
And this they instituted in their constitution. And fortunately for India, they had Jawaharlal Nehru at the helm of affairs as Prime Minister, who was a very enlightened man, a statesman, I would call him, not so much of a politician, but a statesman. Right. And I think his leadership during the first 17 years was formative to India becoming a democracy. Now, of course, we have trends in India which remind us of what we have done in Pakistan by using religion as the basis of nationalism.
Right.
So current India is a worrisome thing for me. But in Pakistan, since we founded a state on the basis of religion, and all Hindus and Sikhs were literally forced to flee from Pakistan, what remained of West Pakistan, which is today's Pakistan, are just Muslims. But then we realized, to the chagrin of all perhaps, that among Muslims there were all these divisions of sect and subsect, and linguistic nationalities had their problems with one another. So using religion or any such marker to found a nation in the hope that it is a homogeneous nation, I think is very problematic.
Okay, so I think Khurram has mentioned to you, you gave a talk in Washington, D.C. in October 2022 based on your books. Has anything changed in Pakistan as far as the civil-military relationship is concerned? Do you think that Pakistan needs a new direction, new ideas, and new thoughts?
Insofar as the first part of the question is concerned, my theory and of the garrison state is confirmed over and over again. The military now has a hold over Pakistan, which in the past was not all that obvious to people. Now, even in Punjab, people are protesting against it.
Right.
And the only hope Pakistan has is to become a normal state, give up its idea of becoming an ideological state. My argument is that ideological states of both right and left ultimately become dictatorships and autocracies. And so Pakistan, in addition to that it became an ideological state, had an ideology which was backward looking. They wanted to bring the 7th century into the 20th, 21st century, and that is impossible.
Right.
So Pakistan has complicated its own future by all these extreme ideas they have been promoting. And so now Pakistan is in a very bad shape. If they want to become a normal state, they have to, of course, establish the rule of law in Pakistan. And in this region, they need to sort out their relations with Afghanistan, with
And
India,
and
with
India.
Iran,
Right.
with all these countries. You can't live in a region and have a conflict with all your neighbors.
I
So
agree
that's
with you.
Pakistan's tragedy. Yeah.
As we understand, you said in February that Pakistan's election may have been rigged because of Imran Khan's PTI, and he had a more member of the parliament than the current government, which is led by Shehbaz Sharif, is in power right now, as I understand. And how do you see him meeting the challenges, which you call a broken economy and relationship with its neighbor in India? Especially, you mentioned Pakistan. Do you think that India needs to work with Pakistan in terms of the trade? Do you think that the Pakistan is in a despair conditions?
Well, let me attend to the various aspects of your question. The first part was what? Can you repeat it? There were many questions in one question.
Well, you said that the Pakistan's election may have been rigged.
Yes. Well, there is absolutely no doubt that they were massively rigged. They were massively rigged. There is absolutely no doubt. I have consulted my friends from childhood who are responsible people, and without any exception, they all say that this was too blatant, too obvious that the election was rigged. But they got away with it as far as we can understand. But we also know that negotiations are now being arranged between Imran Khan and the establishment. And I think President Alvi has been given this task to do the negotiations so that something can be sorted out. Regarding the current government, well, it has its hands tied down because the Pakistan economy is in a very bad shape. What can they do? We have the IMF compelling us to make,
Concessions.
changes, which if they do carry out, and they have done it, means that the burden of the crunch is transferred to the common people. So Pakistan is in a bad shape, and this government, even with its best intentions, has very little leeway to find a way out. So I have been arguing, and I've been arguing it for a very long time, that Pakistan's best bet is to work out some sort of normal relations with India, which should include the resumption of trade and trust building. I have even gone to the extent of saying that the line of control should be accepted as the international border between India and Pakistan. So this is a proposal which I have been presenting in many interviews and talks. So short range, immediately normalize relations with India, open trade, and then in the long run, if you want to stabilize this region, I have a theory that countries which have unrecognized borders or disputed borders always have a great sense of insecurity. I've even said to the Indians, you say that you are an old civilization of 7,000 years. The Chinese claim they are a civilization of 5,000 years. Why can't you both sit down and work out your international border?
They're not going to do that.
They are not going to do that. The same then applies to Pakistan. And to the Pakistanis, I've been saying, you want the Durand line to be declared the international border, whereas Afghanistan is not agreeing. But you don't want the line of control to be the international border with India. So as long as these problems
the
exist.
Kashmir issue is still prevalent in the discussion, and I think that they want to get away from that and move on with the trade.
I hope they do. I hope they do. One way is to start the trade and normalize relations, generally speaking.
Yes, yes.
And then the Kashmir issue can be on the back burner, or
Right.
I would say at some point, I hope we have statesmen on both sides who can understand that 4 wars have not delivered any major.
That is true statement.
Yeah. So why not agree to the line of control, and the line of control can become porous. Like, let's say, the European Union, they have fought 2 terrible, horrible wars, and now they live in peace. Why can't we do it?
Why can we do that? That's a good way to put it. Do you think that the both countries, India and Pakistan, can live in peace and harmony as they move forward?
I hope they can, because
I hope they should, and they will.
And they should, and they must. I would say that what choice that especially Pakistan must give up its, this terrorism which was nurtured in Pakistan post the Afghan jihad, was directed towards the Indian Kashmir and finally into Indian territory as well. So the Indians have
in Mumbai.
Yeah, the Indians have a big question mark. How can we trust Pakistan? Even if we, and I said, the only thing the way the trust can be built is by trying to do it. Let's start with trade, which is mutually beneficial, and then go forward, because
I guess
war is not the option.
Yeah.
War is not the option. Both sides have nuclear weapons, which I hope they never use.
Right.
But if they do, that will be catastrophic.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So, Professor Ahmed, is there anything else that we need to talk before we close our conversation? Right?
Well, actually, I leave it to your discretion if there are any questions.
No, I don't have any question.
Okay, then we end here then. Thank you so much.
This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group, and saying goodbye and thank you for watching. Goodbye.